In the 51st year of the Kiba era, Uchiha Bird watched as Kyushina's belly grew bigger day by day, and his heart was filled with anxiety, fear, emotion, and sadness although the child is not his but he is Yuzhibo. Naruto was born, a 9-tailed beast. Shimura Tuanzang was ready to transform into a beast, and Uchiha Itachi was a top-ranked beast in the ninja realm. The person is in the wooden leaves, the package has been packed, and the pain is pressing against the forehead, preparing to study whether to row horizontally or vertically. Ding! Keywords of the novel. Kiba. Preparing to defect, no pop-ups when the system arrives, Kiba. Preparing to defect, the system arrives. Download the complete TXT collection, Kiba. Preparing to defect, the system arrives. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. I am a Uchibo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. I am a Uchibo. Fire Country, my hidden village, Nanha Shrine. Today is the monthly gathering time of the Uchibo family. The purpose of the gathering is to cultivate emotions among various factions of the family, ease conflicts among family members, and also study how to enter the upper echelons of Kiba, or even become Hokage. Although the current Uchiha clan is not favored by the high-ranking officials of Kiba, they have not reached the level of life and death. They are basically just two people who dislike each other. Pang. A white-haired and wrinkled elder Uchiha stood up from the table, glaring angrily at the clan leader sitting first and the group of elderly Uchiha elders around him. Due to his excessive excitement, his voice became much sharper. The position of the second-generation Hokage was personally handed over to his younger brother, Kazuma, by Qianshou Zhujian. Due to the passing of the Uchiha mirror, we watched as the position of the third-generation Hokage landed on the ape-flying sun slash. Now, the position of the fourth-generation Hokage has become the wave-wind-water gate. What about the agreed-upon protection of 2, 3, and 4? What kind of bullshit plan are you making? Decades have passed, and I haven't even touched Huiying's chair once. Speaking of which, he saw the old men around him either looking at the ceiling or the floor, and not a single one glanced at him. What's going on? Do you still need to charge towards the position of the 5 dynasties Hokage? He is only 24 years old at the Feng Shui Gate this year, and judging from that guy's longevity, living for 50 years is not a problem. 50 years. Your son has died so badly, sigh. Yuzhibo Fuyue let out a light sigh in his heart, and he took out his hand inserted into his sleeve, calmly looking at the irritable old man. As the head of the Uchiha clan, he has seen many such things. The mental state of the clan members is not very good, and they tend to overreact and encountering unpleasant things. There are even some who challenge their clan leader position with just one word of disagreement. Tired after a moment of silence, Fuyue pressed his hand on the other person, gesturing for him to sit down, and then his gaze fell on the people of the tribe in the hall. All the people who can come here to gather are the members of the Uchiha clan who have opened the 3 Goyu Sharingan. Elder Liangi, sit down first. I don't. Yuzhibo Yang waved his hand and refused the kindness of the clan leader. He stepped forward to the old man across from him, grabbed his neck with both hands, and gritted his teeth. Old man, did you propose the plan of protecting 2, fighting 3, rushing 4, in the beginning? That's right. The plan has failed now. Liangi, don't panic, I have followed up plans. Follow up, Grandpa. My grandfather died when he entered the wooden leaf with Lord Ban. Pooh. After wiping off a splash of saliva on his face, Yuzhibo Fanio glanced at the 2 arguing old men next to him and looked at the ceiling, his brain slowly beginning to empty. He has been in the ninja world for 18 years, and when he learned that he had crossed into the Uchiha clan, he was still a bit excited. Then just after his first birthday, he became less excited. Due to the Second Ninja War, he was the only one left at home. When he was 3 years old and had the ability to take action, and realized that he didn't have a golden finger, he began to think about how to break away from the Uchiha clan and move on to other places. At best, he could work as a seed for other ninja villages and live a prosperous life. However, when he looked through the family history, he dispelled the idea of being a seed. There is no problem with defecting and hiding one's name, but after choosing to become a seed of another ninja village, one will not only face endless assassination by Kiba, but also be pursued by the family. In addition, there is a secret agreement between the big ninja villages that does not accept any ninja village's rebellion. It is very likely that those villages that took him in, after leaving behind his bloodline, directly chopped him down. Once, some members of the Uchiha family defected and often walked on the road, inexplicably dying. Anyway, when I saw the last paragraph, Fanio immediately had a wave of conspiracy theories in his heart. In order to prevent the Sharingan or Indra from falling out of his control, Black Jew, the great filial son, is probably secretly playing tricks behind the scenes. After realizing that the seeds were too dangerous, he began to study business again. After studying for a few days, the flying bird once again strangled the path of business in its mind. The ninja world is really a unique technology tree. Electricity, chakra energy, and wind energy are all available. Light bulbs, white paper, and cement are cheaper than before. Farming, medicine and other industries are even more prone to cheating, using no machinery and relying solely on one hand to produce magic output. After being choked to death in the business world, he began to study the path of ninjas. It is said that hard work can change one's destiny, but this statement is not applicable in the realm of ninja, where blood changes one's destiny. He has the top-notch bloodline in the ninja world, and has been working hard to learn and develop ninja skills since childhood. He believes that in the future, he will definitely be either rich or noble, extraordinary. Even if he is poor, he will not be much worse than Uchiha Itachi. He should have the power to protect himself. But it wasn't until he went to the battlefield that he realized he couldn't compare with the brother of his own son, Sasuke, which was simply lowering their upper limit. Uchiha Itachi's first time on the battlefield, seeing such a tragic scene, the Sharingan opened. He went to the battlefield for the first time and saw such a tragic scene, which made him numb. Uchiha Itachi saw the bodies of ninjas scattered throughout the battlefield and pondered the meaning of life. He saw the bodies of ninjas scattered all over the battlefield and thought about whether or not to defect now. Swords have long eyes, so don't die on the battlefield. Uchiha Itachi saw his familiar companion die before his eyes, and the Sharingan evolved, greatly enhancing his strength. He saw his familiar companions die before his eyes, his thoughts sublimated, and his character greatly improved. And everything that happened later was just right, going to school, graduating, participating in the war, opening the Sharingan, participating in the war, and opening the 3 Goju Sharingan. After the end of the Third Ninja War, he became one of the few upper ninjas in the Uchiha clan and gained the privilege to participate in clan gatherings. A gathering. Watching these arguing old men, Yuzhibo's flying bird twitched its lips. Before coming to the gathering, he thought the atmosphere here was unusually serious, and the topics discussed were all related to the future situation of Huiying and Yuzhibo. After arriving, he realized that the atmosphere here was unusually cheerful. The topic of discussion could not be related to the fire shadow, but rather had little to do with it. That's right, when it comes to the topic of Huiying, these old men may have been talking about it for decades, and they probably have passed the novelty of the past long ago. This gathering is really boring. Gollum after realizing his gut was protesting, Uchiha Bird stood up and walked to the center of the hall, facing Fuyue and the group of elders, in order to quickly end the boring meeting. Elders, don't argue anymore. I have a way to make the Uchiha clan become the 5 generations Hokage. As the young voice sounded, the elders who were arguing instantly stopped their voices and turned their heads to look at the Uchiha Bird who had just spoken. Seeing that the new member of the clan, Shangren, was standing up, Liang Yichao raised his eyebrows and said in confusion. Tell me, let me take a look at what interesting ideas the young Yuzhibo in our clan will come up with. My idea is. After observing the expressions of the Uchiha clan in the hall, the bird touched its withered belly and took a deep breath. Should Fuyue clan chief consider divorcing and then pursuing the current clan chief of the Senki Chikushu clan, Lord Tsunade? Now the Senji Qiansho clan only has one person left, Lord Gangsho. As long as the two clans marry, not only will the future 5 generations of Hokage belong to Uchiha, but Senji Qiansho will also merge with Uchiha over time. During the Warring States period, those people dreamed of annexing the Thousand-Handed Clan. And now, if the achievement of annexing the Thousand-Handed Clan were achieved by the chief of Fuyue clan, it would be enough to be engraved on stone tablets and passed down to future generations. As soon as he finished speaking, he noticed that the hall had become unusually quiet. At this moment, even the sound of a needle falling to the ground was no less than the sound of a broken water cup. The gaze of these elders of Yuzhibo kept wandering back and forth between Fuyue and Fanio. Humph. An elder with scars on his face stood up and turned to face the flying bird, his voice low. The Grand Muyi clan actually had to rely on the clan leader's betrayal of his body to serve as the Hokage. Even if the old man agreed to this bad idea, others would not agree, and the clan leader would not agree. That's right. An elder named Uchiha who was blind in one eye nodded in agreement. What a bad idea, to make Yuzhibo and Senzikishu mix up. Although our plan of protecting 2, fighting 3, and charging 4 has failed, it does not prevent us from once again pointing our finger at the 5 generations Hokage. Fuck you. At this moment, the elder named Liangyi stood up again and pointed to the blind elder across from him, gritting his teeth. When Lord Ban was still alive, we pointed our swords at the position of Hokage. However, after the village was built, Lord Ban and your ancestors gave up the position of Hokage to the Chisho family, and we began to point our swords at the 2nd generation Hokage. As a result, it had not been 2 years since the village was built, when Mr. Ban suddenly left the wooden leaf. Our sword has broken later on. Yuzhibo worked hard and finally became the 2nd generation Hokage guardian. We started to point our swords at the 3rd generation Hokage, but when he went to negotiate with the 2nd generation Hokage to the Kingdom of Thunder, he died on the road. Our sword, which had just been repaired for a while, broke again. Later, at the end of the Second Ninja War, we hastily selected one person to serve as the facade again, hoping to once again point our sword at the position of the 3rd generation Hokage. After all, at that time, the position of the monkey flying sun slayer was not yet firmly established. Who would have thought that the person selected was a fool, leading the family of ninjas to fight for a year, winning not as many times as the old man did in a day's restroom, crazily lowering the family's reputation. After the start of the 3rd Ninja War, the clan leader finally got a chance to become a candidate for Hokage, and we once again point our finger at the 4th Hokage. As a result, there was a pervert at the Wind and Water Gate. Our sword had not yet unsheathed and was folded at the doorstep. Speaking of which, he swallowed his saliva and moistened his throat before continuing to point at the blind old man and spray. Do you still need to bring the old man's sword finger to the 5 dynasties fire shadow now? Can I go to you? If we rely on the clan leader to sell our bodies now, we can serve as the Hokage. I admit it, and when we go to the Pure Land in the future, I will personally kneel in front of Lord Ban and explain this matter. Watching Yuzhibo gradually split into 2 factions in the hall, with a faint intention of taking action, the flying bird quietly retreated to the door. As he slipped out of the hall, he casually closed the door from outside. Tsk tisk. Turning his head to look at the group of people still arguing behind him, Fanio pursed his lips and remained silent. Yuzhibo and his group are somewhat mentally abnormal, and as a mentally abnormal family, the management of the family is naturally exceptionally loose. At gatherings, not only can they speak freely, but they can also engage in physical discussions and win or lose on the theory of ninjutsu. And his just proposed plan to divorce the clan chief and marry Gangsho, disguised as the 5 generations Hokage, successfully detonated the group of clan members who pointed fingers at the failure of the 4 generations Hokage. Neurosis. After speaking, Fanio quickly left here, preparing to go back and pack up his things. After witnessing the wedding of the fourth Hokage, he defected. Alas, I'm not being stubborn anymore. I've changed my mind. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. I defeat Ding. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. I defect. Ding boom. A heat wave blew directly on the back of the flying bird, and he stopped and turned to look in the direction of the arrival. I saw that the sky at Nanha Shrine was dyed deep red by flames, and a fireball occasionally exploded in mid-air, like fireworks, looking quite spectacular from a distance. It seems that none of those old men have convinced anyone in their words. That. At this moment, the flying bird suddenly heard the voice of a child coming from the nearby grass. Looking for the sound, it saw 3 children holding cameras looking at the Nanha Shrine with frightened faces, their voices trembling. Big brother, did the enemy come in? The bird walked up to the 3 children and reached out to touch their heads, with a slight smile on its lips, shaking its head and saying, "No, that's the shrine of the Uchiha clan, they're discussing issues." Is that right? Watching the exploding fireball in the sky, these 3 children looked at the flying bird with suspicion. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem like a normal way of discussing problems. It's really scary. However, the good-looking big brother should not deceive us. By the way. The bird lowered its head and looked at the 3 children, as well as the camera in their hands, wondering. You're not from the Uchiha clan, are you? Why did you come here? That. The child holding the camera shook the camera in his hand towards the flying bird, and the fear on his face gradually replaced by excitement. It's almost Hokage's wedding day, and we want to take advantage of today to find a place with excellent scenery and take a short film of blessings to give to Hokage. Big brother, would you like to have a segment? Blessing short film. He hasn't had any contact with Bo Fengshui Gate. What do you wish him? Looking at the hopeful little eyes of these 3 children, Fanio tidied up her hair and spoke. Okay. After turning on the camera, he gestured to the camera and said his long thought-out blessings. 4th generation Huiying adults, Juxinai adults, congratulations on your marriage. Alright. After speaking, he waved his hand at the 3 children and walked straight away from here. Go back and pack up your things, ready to run away while the 4th Hokage gets married. Who let the defense be weak at that time? The people are simple and the scenery is beautiful. The village of Mai, which combines technology and classicism, makes people reluctant to leave after just a few glances. Of course, birds do not want to leave. But he not only has no cheats, but his innate photos are only a few grades behind those 8-year-old masters who dismantled the wooden leaves, and his mouth is also clumsy. After 18 years, he can't use his mouth to hide any secrets. In the past, when he was on the battlefield, he was stabbed by Kowu when he tried to avoid others. And even if I change one Uchiha Itachi, who knows if a second Uchiha Itachi will appear. This thing is hard to defend against, and the key lies in the elders like Mu Yi. After 18 years of hard work, he still doesn't know if he can defeat Tuanzang. Anyway, the monkey flying sun / will definitely not defeat him now, Lord Juxinai. Just as the flying bird was lost in thought, he heard many villagers respectfully calling for help from ahead. Looking for the sound, he saw Juxina with long red hair standing in the middle of the street carrying a small basket, constantly greeting the surrounding villagers, and the basket in her hand was filled with baby supplies. Looking at the maternal radiance emanating from the red chili pepper, the bird's mouth twitched twice, and a sense of urgency arose in its heart. Has Naruto Vortex already begun to conceive? When passing by Kyushina, he greeted him and then casually bought some food before heading straight home. Kyushina is pregnant, which means that it is less than 10 months since the night of the 9 tails. 1 month later, on the morning of the wedding day. Bang! He placed his package heavily on the table, and Uchiha Bird looked around the empty room with a soft sigh in his heart. In this month, He sold all the things he could sell and exchanged all the money with weapons such as kowu and detonating talismans with his cat grandmother. Anything bought by rebellious ninjas is almost 10% more expensive than regular ninjas, and those black merchants focus on heart black. They firmly believe that you dare not cause trouble, and if you dare to cause trouble, others dare to report it. Unfortunately, the house cannot be sold, otherwise I would still have some money in my hands to buy some essential items. During this month, he watched as Kyushina's belly grew bigger day by day, filled with anxiety, unease, fear, emotion, and sadness in his heart. Although he hasn't even touched Kyushina's hand, the child in his belly is not his either, but he is Yuzhibo. After the Night of the Nine Tails, the survival situation of the Uchiha clan will take a sharp turn for the worse. There is no divine perspective, and the appearance of the Sharingan in the Nine Tails' eyes cannot be explained. And throughout the ninja world, children know that the Sharingan belongs to the Uchiha family. And in a few more years, the filial son Itachi will raise his butcher's knife again. Looking out the window at the tribal land, he deeply remembered the scenery that he had already grown tired of. He took out the exclusive forehead protector of the Konoha ninja from his arms and muttered to himself. "Don't worry, during holidays and festivals, I will burn paper for you." After speaking, he began to study the forehead protector in his hand. After all, being a trader for the first time doesn't have much experience. Is this thing scratched horizontally or vertically? Ding, host information detected, counterattack system started, name. Uchibo Flying Bird, age. 18 years old, identity. Uchiha Clan Ninja, strength. Upper Ninja. A very mechanical sound sounded in the ears of the flying bird. He instinctively withdrew his frustration and looked around with a wary expression, but as he heard the sound in his heart, the bird froze for a moment, feeling either excited or helpless. Is your system bound only when I make up my mind to become a trader? No matter what the triggering conditions of the system are, the system still needs to be opened. This system is a counterattack system that helps the host successfully defeat Naruto Vortex and become the strongest in the ninja realm. Do you accept beginner gift packages? Looking at the brief introduction of the system, the bird's eyes flashed with a brilliant light. Just by looking at the brief introduction of the system, you can tell that this thing has strong functions. Surprisingly, I can make myself the strongest in the ninja world. With excitement in mind, Fanio directly opened the beginner's gift package. Receive. As soon as the words fell, several items suddenly appeared on the empty table. After taking a few deep breaths, he picked up the item that had just appeared on the table, similar to an exchange voucher, looked at the huge handwriting on it, and instinctively recited. The honey mustard flavored fried chicken family bucket that children love to eat. Quantity. Infinite. Usage. Crush and summon. After watching it, the bird froze in place and remained silent for a long time. Is there any necessary connection between this thing and becoming stronger? If he remembers correctly, eating too much fried chicken will make him fat, right? Then he picked up several other items, looked at the introduction above, and continued reciting. Ninja School Textbook Knowledge Learning Accelerator Card, 3 days. 1 day can be used as a month, saving you more time for practice. A detailed explanation of the Will to Resist Fire course at Ninja School, with annotations and insights from various teachers at Ninja School. By memorizing it, you will completely break free from the scrutiny of Tuanzang. A comprehensive collection of various teachers' habits and hobbies at Renmin School, familiar with and flexible in using it. Even if you skip classes and practice in the future, the teacher will still turn a blind eye. A miniature camera with no battery and limited capacity, you can use it to record every minute and second of the ninja school. What? The flying bird looked at these things on the table with a question mark on its face, and said with a puzzled expression. System, I admit, the beginner gift package you gave me was pretty good. But have you noticed that this thing seems to only be used by students from ninja school? System, what is my current strength? As soon as the words fell, the mechanical sound rang out again. Shangren, did you give me the wrong beginner gift package? I've been enduring graduating from school for 8 years now. Why did you give me this gift package? After inspection, there is no error, my strength. Shangren, who used the newbie gift package you gave me? Ninja school students. Did you send the wrong message? No mistake, ha ha. The bird looked at the things on the table in silence. He put down his backpack, turned around, and walked towards the park in the village. The defection was delayed in advance, and the 4th generation Hokage was about to open a banquet. Let's go grab a meal first. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. System for taking the wrong script. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. System for taking the wrong script. Fire Country, Woodleaf Hidden Village, Park. Respected guests, all friends present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Wow. 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 After the enthusiastic applause from below ended, the MC pressed down his hands and continued reciting. Today is February 1st, the 51st year of the Kiba era. We are gathered in the park together to celebrate the wedding ceremony of Bofeng Shui Gate and Vortex Kyushina. I am Nara Kazuki. First of all, on behalf of the groom, bride, and adult Zilai, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude and warm welcome to everyone's arrival. Welcome everyone. Last year, we experienced the most painful battle since the establishment of my village, the Battle of Kikyu Mountain. In that war, we lost too many companions and loved ones. Fortunately, we won the war. At the end of last year, various villages signed ceasefire agreements with us one after another. We would like to express our gratitude to those comrades who have been sleeping in the Pure Land for creating a peaceful living environment for our upcoming generation. Listening to Lu Jio's heartfelt speech on stage, the corners of the bird's mouth twitched slightly. Isn't the draft in Lu Jio's hand from Sandai? Surprisingly, it is possible to forcibly link marriage and childbirth with the will of fire. Burn yourself and let new leaves sprout. Resolutely stepping into the tomb of marriage, just to let future generations see this beautiful world. Pooh! The world of ninja is too cruel. I have only lived for 18 years and don't want to live anymore. Surprisingly, I still want future generations to see it. Thinking of this, he turned his head to look at Uchiha Itachi sitting next to him, and saw him drinking soda one cup after another. The bird leaned down slightly and whispered. Little ghost, drink less of this. Why? Itachi lifted his head and looked at the flying bird with a puzzled expression. Originally, he was sitting at the children's table, but those bear children were all eating with their hands, which made people lose their appetite. Later, he brought a small stool to the tribe's table. I didn't expect to be lectured by someone just after coming over and drinking 2 glasses of soda. There's no special reason. The bird shrugged its shoulders and said with a nonchalant expression. I just heard that your family gave a gift of 200,000 taels today, and I'm afraid you'll have to drink too much today and lose too much. After all, your parents got married early, and your family was born at a disadvantage. If your parents remarry after divorce, they may still be able to earn some back from the 4th generation couple. After speaking, he hugged his chest with both hands and stopped talking about it. If you remember well, the 4th generation couple is about to hang up, and this 200,000 yuan gift is definitely a waste. And in the future, Naruto held a wedding ceremony, but Sasuke did not. This time, at least 400,000 taels were lost. What kind of unjust family? Eating 2 meals resulted in a blood loss of 400,000. Beautiful bride, are you willing to marry a handsome groom? I am willing. Oh, the huge cheers around shook the ears of the flying birds, and they looked at the 4-generation couple on stage who were crazily scattering dog food. The corners of their mouths twitched a few times, and they also clapped their palms to join in the fun. Although his relationship with the 4th generation Hokage couple was not good, he still received a gift of 1,000 taels, so he still had to eat. If it weren't for the sudden arrival of the system, he would have finished his meal and run away. After glancing at the silent Uchiha Itachi, the flying bird closed its eyes and opened the system again to study. After reading those beginner gift packages, he didn't have the mood to continue reading. Now that he has finally calmed down a bit, it's time to study how this system can improve his strength. Novice Task. Under the guise of an elder grandson, Uchiha Naoki has repeatedly bullied you while your brother, Uchiha Itachi, is out on missions. Please defeat Uchiha Naoki and make him your steadfast supporter. As a prerequisite for starting subsequent tasks, novice tasks cannot be abandoned. What? Flying birds fill their heads with question marks. Uchiha Naoki. Who is he really? After flipping through his memory, he couldn't find out who Uchiha Naoki was. And why is his brother Uchiha Itachi? Turning its head to look at the weasel sitting on its left side, the bird placed its hand on the other person's head and rubbed it while asking. Itachi, is there anyone in your clan with the same name and surname as you? No. Seeing Itachi shaking his head, the flying bird turned around again to look at the old man to the right and asked. Elder Mado, is there a person in our tribe called Yuzhibo Jishu? The old man put down his wine glass, looked up and down at the flying bird, and then moved his body back, wondering. What are you looking for him for? It's not a big deal. The bird picked up its wine glass and took a few sips before saying it directly without hesitation. Just now, I suddenly remembered that I used to be bullied by that guy and have been bored lately. I want to have a fair showdown with him. Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, the old man slammed his big hand heavily on the table, causing all the dishes on the table to fly off the table with tremendous force. It startled the Itachi who was focused on eating beside him, causing him to gasp and choke to death on the spot. He held his rice bowl in both hands and looked around with a bewildered expression, then saw that the face of the elder on his left side had turned purple. Uchibo Flying Bird. Where did you get your face to fight Naoki? I opposed your proposal at the clan meeting, but you actually want to retaliate against my grandson. Looking at Elder Mado, whose beard was erect and his whole body trembling, Uchibo Fanio blinked his eyes and said with some confusion. How old is Jishu this year? 2 years old. Upon hearing this, Fanio was momentarily stunned on the chair. Then, he picked up Yuzhibo Itachi with both hands and changed positions with the other person. He quickly moved away from the old man Yuzhibo Madu. Hasty. System, what era is this year? My 57 fart. Glancing at the fourth-generation couple kissing on the wedding stage, my gaze crossed over to the banner behind them, which clearly read. Congratulations to Mr. Bo Feng Shui Men and Miss Xian Wujio Xian Na for getting married on February 1st, 51st year in Kiba, supporting each other and growing old together. The bird gritted its teeth and shouted angrily in its heart. This year marks the 51st year of Temu, and the wedding ceremony at Bo Feng Shui Men has not yet been completed. Please refer to the time recognized by the system, who. The bird let out a deep breath, calmed down for a moment, and then continued to ask. Also, why is Uchibo Itachi my brother? Even if calculated by seniority, I am 1 generation older than him. As a brother of the same mother, he was born 3 years earlier than you, so he should be his brother. The body of the flying bird is trembling slightly. Fart, I am the only child in my family, and I have been drinking milk powder since I was born. I have never taken a sip of someone else's milk before. Where did I come from? Please refer to the character relationships recognized by the system. After a long silence, the flying bird almost knew where the problem was. This broken system was launched 6 years earlier, but the key is that the person was also bound incorrectly. The more it looks like a system that has crossed into Sasuke. Never mind, if it comes to oneself, it will be one's own. I request a change of task. Task cannot be changed. I'm not Uchiha Sasuke, don't give me his task. Please refer to the task relationship recognized by the system. Is it appropriate for me, Shangren, who is one of the top players in the Uchiha family, to fight a child who has not yet weaned? Is this also called a comeback? Go flip through the dictionary and see how the counterattack explains it. Please complete the beginner task. I'm not going to deal with Yuzhibo Madu. You replace the character with him, and I'll go find him to counterattack. Please complete the beginner task. Uninstall the system. I want to defect. Please complete the beginner task. Haha. The bird looked at the sky with a sneer on its face, and this system was completely different from what it had imagined. He recognized it even when doing tasks, not because the sign-in became stronger. But he couldn't hit the child. Also, the mouth of this system is really hard. Even if you bind the wrong person and remember the wrong time, you just refuse to admit it. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Me, Flying Bird, Uchiha Divorce Faction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Me, Flying Bird, Uchiha Divorce Faction. Uchiha Naoki is only 2 years old. Kakashi, a genius who graduated from ninja school at the age of 5 and became a ninja, and the talent of the Uchibo clan is not inferior to Kakashi. This also indicates that Uchiha Naoki had a low tolerance level at the age of 5. In other words, the reputation of Shanren fighting against Sharon is better than that of Shanren beating children. Although they all bully the small with the big, it is called a duel between the upper and lower ninja, which allows the other party to experience the cruelty of the ninja world in advance. After figuring out these things, Fanio glanced at the old guy Yuzhibo Madu from the corner of his eye and waited for 3 years to see what surprises this system would bring him. Sasuke's system now belongs to himself, and that is his own. Lord Bufeng Shuemen, Lord Juxinai, congratulations on getting married. Thank you, thank you. We were just looking at the Huiying couple from the audience, and couldn't help but feel a bit envious. Now that Huiying Lord has the help of a wise wife, I believe Mu Ye's recovery speed will definitely be ahead of us again. The peace in the realm of ninja is not easy to come by, and Kiba will not initiate war. The future peace situation still needs our joint efforts to maintain. Lord Hokage must come to the Hinata clan's land as a guest when he has time. Tell those inexperienced descendants about the ninja experience, so that they won't die inexplicably at the hands of certain ninja villages when they go to the battlefield in the future. Where did the leader of the Hinata clan say? Next, I will visit each major family one by one and share some combat experience. Seeing the guests of the 4th generation couple attending the wedding banquet, whether they were other ninjas or villagers, they were very polite, and after thanking each other one by one, the flying bird sitting on the chair looked at the back of the 4th generation couple and sighed softly. This is called a strong alliance. And as the largest family of Kiba, our Uchiha actually engages in intermarriage within the clan. Fuyue clan chief's gaze is really narrow-minded. Why can't he quickly divorce for the sake of his family and pursue the woman who used to be the largest family member, Senzikihu? Clack. Seeing Itachi, for some unknown reason, all the chopsticks in his hand fell to the ground. The flying bird stuffed its chopsticks into him and spoke up. Keep eating, I'm not talking about the leader of the Fuyue tribe. I heard it all. Since you have heard about it, do you have any opinions on my proposed plan for the alliance between the Uchiha clan and the Mori Chikushu clan? Moreover, due to the fact that there is only one clan leader left in the Senchikushu clan, the only one in our Uchiha clan who can marry Princess Tsunade based on their status is the Fuyue clan leader. If the clan leader does not divorce, who will divorce? Upon hearing the plan brought up by the flying bird, Itachi shook his head without even thinking, and his face was filled with the words, refuse. A while ago, he was shopping with his mother when he unexpectedly heard someone mention this plan. His heart twitched at the time, and his mother exploded on the spot, almost putting on a ninja combat suit and hitting the house where the plan was proposed. Although the plan is quite good and there are no logical errors, the person who proposed it probably did not consider the opinions of themselves, their mother, Lord Gungute, and others at all. The most important thing is that neither tribe will agree with this. Watching Itachi remain silent for a long time, Fanio took out the newbie gift package given by the system from his pocket and found the book about the detailed explanation of the Will to Resist School Fire course. After flipping through it for a while, he whispered. When I went to ninja school, my teacher once told me that Kiba is a big family, and we are all part of it. Do not view problems from the perspective of one group or group, let alone with narrow eyes. More often than not, we have to approach a problem from the perspective of the village, ignoring the contemptuous gaze of Uchiha Madu beside him. Fanio naturally tore off the cover of the book, Will of Fire, in his hand, rubbed it in his pocket, and continued reciting. Only by integrating internal contradictions can we confidently confront external contradictions. Subsequently, the flying bird closed the book in its hand, stood up and forcefully pulled Uchibo Itachi to an empty corner, squatting down to prevent the other person from looking up at it. Glancing at the wedding banquet in the distance, the bird's gaze once again fell on Itachi, praising him. You are a genius, you are wise, rational, and very good at thinking. The leader of Fuyue clan often praises you in front of us. Although you are only 4 years old now, I hope you can think about the issue of parental divorce from the perspective of Hokage, and your thoughts should not be constrained by the boundaries between the Uchiha clan and the village. Think about it, stand in the position of the fire's shadow and think. In addition, if your father cannot catch Princess Gumgate after his divorce, he can remarry your mother and you can reclaim 200,000 taels or even earn more. Both sides are not at a disadvantage. After speaking, he gave Uchibo Itachi an encouraging look. The flying bird is not afraid to bear the reputation of teaching the son of the clan leader, and the things he teaches are not wrong. This is a very pure will of fire personally annotated by the teacher of the ninja school. Moreover, Itachi, this child, has already fallen out of sync with Jishue and has started to think from the perspective of the village. Since that's the case, why don't you think from the perspective of the village about the issue of, my biological father divorced and married Gangsho? Watching the disappearing bird's back, Itachi crouched on the grass, grabbing at the grass leaves while thinking about what the other party had just mentioned. As the son of the clan chief, he naturally knows some things within the family. Because Uchiha, as the family that co-founded Kiba with Chisho, missed the position of Hokage 4 times in a row, which led to a considerable accumulation of dissatisfaction within the clan. During the last gathering within the clan, those elders even fought fiercely over it. If the conflict accumulates to a certain extent, there will definitely be conflicts between the clan and the village. The solution to this problem is also very simple. That is to create a Hokage from the Uchiha clan. However, he also heard from Jishue that it was difficult for the Uchiha clan to come up with a Hokage, not only due to their own emotional flaws, but also some external factors. But if the Uchiha clan marries Princess Gumgate, then everything will indeed be different. As the granddaughter of the first and second generations, the disciple of the third generation, and the senior uncle of the fourth generation, Princess Tsunade's identity is truly legitimate. She and the descendants of the Uchiha clan can be said to be the perfect inheritor of Hokage. Am thinking of this, Yuzhibo Itachi looked at the banquet where his own father and mother sat at the main table with a loving and affectionate expression, and his heart became more conflicted. Persuading parents to divorce, unfilial, but beneficial to the family and village. Not advising parents to divorce, filial piety, but it may harm the village in the future. But why is it his own father? Just because he is the clan leader, should he take the initiative to stand in the perspective of the same clan and make sacrifices? As time passed, the banquet gradually came to an end. After chatting with the Uchiha clan leader and the fourth generation couple, they stood up and prepared to leave. Uchibo Meichin glanced at the venue and looked at the old ladies packing leftovers. Suddenly, she thought of her grandmother. When she was a child, she fell ill and didn't attend a wedding, and her grandmother did the same. She packed a bunch of food for herself. Just as Meichin was reminiscing about the wonderful childhood life, she looked at a child packing leftovers in the corner of the venue, with a smile on her lips. Although her status are different from when she was a child, she still misses the leftover food from her childhood. Seeing the child suddenly look up at her, Yuzhibo Meichin looked at the familiar face of the other person and blinked her eyes in disbelief. Then she threw off Fuyue and walked to the table, looking at Yuzhibo Itachi, who was packing leftovers, and whispered. Itachi, what are you doing? Mother. Hearing a familiar call coming from his ear, Itachi saw his mother suddenly walk up to him. He shook the plastic bag in his hand and pointed to the leftover food inside the bag, saying. Someone just said that the financial situation in our clan is a bit tight, and there is a serious imbalance between income and expenditure. As the young clan leader, since I do not have the ability to open up financial resources for our clan, I need to save more. He also said that just after the end of World War II, the village also experienced financial difficulties. Every time someone got married, the villagers would pack some leftover food and go home to heat up and fill their stomachs. He also said that you came from that period, mother, and you should have a deep understanding of it. Upon hearing this, Yuzhibo Meichin's smile froze on her face. Just now, when she saw Yuzhibo Itachi packing these things, she thought it was going to feed the kittens in the tribe's land. I didn't expect it to be taken home to eat, even though it's delicious. Thinking of this, Yuzhibo Meichin took a deep breath and crouched down, touching Itachi's head with a loving expression on her face. That was indeed the case back then, but now the situation is much better than before. And, you packed too much, we can't finish it, no. Yuzhibo Itachi shook his head and placed the bag on the floor, counting with his fingers. Because my father and mother got married early, and at that time my mother didn't know Mr. Juxinai didn't bow when my mother got married. And today my mother gave a gift of 200,000 taels. Even if I get married in the future, Lord Juxinai will give back another 200,000 taels, and then her child gets married, I still have to give back 200,000 taels. After calculation, our family is still losing 200,000 taels. Unless upon hearing this, Yuzhibo Meichin's heart thumped for a moment. She suppressed the chaotic thoughts in her mind and focused her gaze on Itachi, looking at her son with a troubled expression. Meichin's expression softened and she said gently. Unless for what? Yuzhibo Itachi took a sniff, and after struggling for a while, he finally figured out something. Village clan family. Although the benefits outweigh the drawbacks of persuading parents to divorce, speaking it out directly may result in being beaten up, which should be tactful. It is even necessary to test the mother's views on divorce in advance. At the crossroads here, Itachi, like a few years later on the night of the extermination, still chose to sacrifice his family for everyone. After finally making a decision in his heart, he took 2 steps forward and hugged his mother, then placed his little head on her shoulder and said like an ignorant child. Unless our parents divorce and remarry, we won't be at a loss. We can also donate a portion of the earned gift money to the orphanage, while the other portion can improve the living conditions of the orphans and widows in our clan. Yuzhibo Meichin's face completely calmed down. She looked at her son and suddenly felt that going to school earlier was not that difficult to accept. As long as she had a ninja degree, she wouldn't just persuade her parents to divorce and remarry for the sake of the gift money. This fool should have been guided by someone. Who told you that? Hearing his mother's cold voice coming from above, Itachi suddenly felt a hint of unease. He didn't even think about selling the flying bird, he whispered. Last time I planned to strongly advise my father on getting divorced. Yuji. Wave. Fly. Bird. Meichin picked up the weasel and turned to look towards the direction of the Uchiha tribe. Her lips were bitten by her teeth, losing their color. That guy has a problem with his mind. Why did he try to persuade Fuyue and himself to divorce? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Dreams. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Dreams. Watergate. Upon hearing the call of Kyushina from the living room, Shuemen held a frying pan in one hand and a shovel in the other, and leaned forward to look at Kyushina sitting on the sofa, speaking. I'm here. Shuemen, today several ninjas from the Uchiha clan have sent us their wedding wishes. Kyushina flipped the camera in her hand, looking at the blessings recorded by the Uchiha ninjas, her smile on her face couldn't be concealed. However, the smiles on the faces of Yuzhibo's group seemed to be forced out, so far-fetched. It feels like someone is standing by while filming, constantly threatening them with words, suck suck. Suddenly, she smelled the smell of cooking fumes in the air. She looked up and saw that the feng shui gate had come to the side at some point, looking down at the footage recorded by the camera in her hand. Looking at the shovel that was still dripping oil, Kyushina patted the sofa and said with some heartache. Be careful, the sofa has been replaced. Ah. Sorry. At this moment, Shueimen also realized and ran back to the kitchen, putting back the shovel apron, and then went back to look at Kyushina next to him. Not only are there blessings from ninjas from the same village, but there are also blessings from ninjas from other villages. Even Yunin village, which has not yet signed a ceasefire agreement with Kiba and is still engaged in small-scale warfare, has sent blessings. Watergate. At this moment, Kyushina was seen holding onto Shueimen's shoulder with one hand and caressing her gradually bulging belly with the other, inquiring. A few days ago, I heard from Mei-chin that the conflicts within her family are getting bigger and bigger, and the people are becoming more difficult to manage. During the last clan meeting, some even proposed to divorce the chieftain and pursue the chieftain of the Qianshou family. Wufeng Shueimen looked at his wife with a bewildered expression in his eyes. He thought of the love between Fuyue and his wife in his mind and quickly asked. Why? Harmful. Kyushina put down the camera in her hand and said speechlessly. It's not the location of Huiying that caused the commotion. Since Mei-chin married Fuyue, she has been driven crazy by that group of clan members, pulling the clan leader every day to forcibly recall the past. For example, when the village was built, the first Hokage patted Uchiha's shoulder and said that they wanted to pass on the position of the second Hokage to him. Later, the second-generation Hokage patted the shoulder of Uchiha Mirror and said, You are different from the other Uchiha. You are the most likely inheritor of the third-generation Hokage in the Uchiha family. Later, the 3 generations of old men patted Fuyue's shoulder and said, blocking the enemy's attack, your name will appear in the candidates of Huiying. Shueimen, as the 4th-generation Hokage, it is your responsibility to maintain the stability of the village, and the Uchiha clan is also the largest family of Kiba. Looking at his wife's hesitant expression, Shueimen instantly remembered the 1,000-handed clan chief she had just mentioned. Is this trying to get oneself involved? That way, I will be beaten to death by Lord Gangzhou. Thinking of the scene where his master was once hammered into the hospital by Gangzhou with his fist, and then treated with his palm before being hammered back into the hospital, Shueimen shook his head vigorously and muttered to himself. It's not possible, Lord Gumgute will kill Teacher Zilai. What? Kyushina looked at Shueimen with a question mark on her face. She couldn't understand this guy's brain circuit. She told him that if the internal conflicts of the Yuzhibo clan were not dealt with in a timely manner, it would affect the village in the future. Where did you think of it? Fool. Kyushina rode directly on the legs of Shueimen, grabbing his collar with both hands and swaying back and forth. Why don't you transfer the ninja who advised Mei-chin to divorce? If he can't hold the clan meeting and can't provide any suggestions, that's all. Where to adjust? Watching Kyushina's hair stand up, Wufeng Shueimen quickly raised his hands and made a gesture of surrender, with a pleasing smile on his face, saying. Got it, got it. Due to a group of people applying to return to the normal ninja sequence in the dark department recently, there have been a large number of vacancies in the dark department. In the future, the dark department will send invitations to outstanding ninjas in the village. What about this period of time? What about this period of time? This paragraph. This paragraph, with some stuttering words, Shueimen secretly glanced at Kyushina, who was angry. He kept patting his wife's back with one hand to help her calm down, while rubbing his chin with the other hand, showing a spoiled expression on his face. Recently, there have been a group of ninja school students applying for early graduation. If that person is mentally healthy, they can be appointed as a temporary teacher for a period of time. Kyushina, what is the name of the ninja from the Uchiha family? I'll go back and check the file. That's pretty good. Kyushina picked up the camera that was thrown aside, flipped it for a while, and pointed to the blessing video above, saying, That's him, Uchiha Flying Bird, Uchiha Ujina of the Uchiha clan, a very versatile ninja. It is said that he had already possessed Ujina combat power when he was once a Nakano. Now he has put up his patience, but his specific combat power is unknown, so it's him. Following Kyushina's fingers, he saw a somewhat familiar figure in the camera. Looking at the familiar figure, after recalling it in his mind, a lightning bolt suddenly flashed through his mind, and he instantly became somewhat silent. Seeing Shuemen suddenly sitting there in silence, Kyushina shook his shoulder and said with some concern, Does he have any questions? That's it. Shuemen shook his head, recalling scenes from World War III and information about flying birds in his mind, and slowly said. His experience is somewhat similar to that of Lord Tsunade, but he is one of the few combat-type ninjas to master medical ninjutsu. Moreover, the information stated that the Third Ninja War took away all his companions, and the medical ninjutsu he had learned for a long time not only allowed him to clearly perceive the passing of vitality within his companions, but also could not extend their lives. Later, he denied his medical ninjutsu and never used it again. Is that so? After listening to Shuemen's account, Kyushina was taken aback for a moment. Due to her identity, she did not participate in the Third Ninja World War. But during that time, almost every house in my village was floating white. All right. Shuemen saw that Kyushina was a bit unhappy. He gently touched the other person's stomach with his hand and spoke. Tomorrow I will assign him a small team. At this point, the bird sat on the chair, looking around his empty room, feeling a hint of regret in his heart. Grandma Cat is really black. When I buy, you give me a 10% discount, and when I sell, you give me a 70% discount. This time, I didn't do anything and my family's assets shrank by nearly 1/3. Sigh. With a deep sigh, he spat out the roasted chicken bones from his mouth onto the floor, then his gaze fell on the sleeping big orange lying on the table. He looked at the fat cat, which was so fat that it didn't look like it. After pushing and shoving twice, he spoke up. Don't sleep, go help me deliver the letter. Noticing that someone was constantly pushing his buttocks, Big Orange slowly opened his eyes and instinctively stretched out. Then he saw that there seemed to be a letter tied to his waist, and in an instant, the orange cat's lazy posture froze. After half a day of silence, it looked at the recipient's message and then looked up at the flying bird, with a touch of humanized helplessness on its face, and a girl-like voice in its mouth, muttering. I don't want to deliver letters to widows, it's unlucky. Moreover, the thousand-handed clan and you are enemies of the world. Pooh. The flying bird spat on the ground, then looked towards the direction of the Qiansho tribe and spoke. The other party has all wiped out their clan, and there is only one woman left in the entire clan. What kind of feud are we talking about at this time? When the thousand-handed clan was still alive, they would argue with each other for a while. Now that everyone else is dead, it's not like falling into a well like this. Upon hearing this, the orange cat glanced at the flying bird and then opened the letter, reading its contents. To the Qiansho clan leader of Sen. Qiansho Gangsho. As the Third Ninja War gradually comes to an end, the ninja realm has finally ushered in temporary peace. Although all of this is only temporary, as the head of the Uchiha clan, I would like to discuss with you through a letter about the future of 2,000-year-old families, the future of the village, and the future of the ninja realm. Yuzhibo Fuyue Clack. Just as I finished reading, a piece of paper suddenly fell out of the envelope. The orange cat picked up the piece of paper that had fallen on the table, opened it and looked at it twice before exclaiming in surprise. Fanio, have you become rich? Why did you put 100,000 taels of silver in the envelope? It's not surprising that Gangsho can return us without money. What are you trying so hard for? Pop. The flying bird lightly slapped the orange cat's head, making it difficult to breathe. I just want to live this life safely. As long as we use force, it represents danger. If we can resolve it peacefully, we must resolve it peacefully. I suddenly remembered that I had not signed this book yet, and it was a bit excessive to send 6,000 in a day. Today is just one chapter, let me slowly write it first. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Am I going to be the team leader? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Am I going to be the team leader? Early morning. A hazy mist suddenly descended, leaving the small village of Mai, which was about 50 years old, dressed as if it were 40.9 without any vitality. The bird, who had finished washing up, pushed open the door and walked out. He looked around at the thick mist and murmured. If you could have a grilled fish sprinkled with chili sauce at this time, would that be great? Turning to look at the room, he saw the fat orange cat still sleeping. After the bird's mouth twitched, he snapped his fingers and summoned 2 honey mustard-flavored whole family buckets. He placed one on the table and carried the other out of the house. Today is the monthly clan meeting time again. Since we have decided not to defect, let's have a good meeting and listen to when they will study the plan to turn the tables. In the early morning, there were not many pedestrians on the street, and the sound of birds devouring food spread far across the street. When he arrived at the shrine, he saw that many old men had already gathered here. Upon hearing the sound of footsteps coming from afar, Uchiha Madao saw that the person was a flying bird. After snorting coldly, he immediately shook his head and looked elsewhere. Hello, Elder Madao, haven't you forgotten yesterday? Shut up, I don't want to talk to you. Eating something, not eating 2 pounds of meat in the morning is not good for the elderly. Take it away, I won't eat such greasy food in the morning. Is it greasy? Looking down at the whole family bucket in his hand, Fanio's face turned pale and he said seriously. Who do you think we are? We are Uchiha. Other family members need to maintain health and eat light foods because they have poor digestion. Don't put our family on the same level as other families. Moreover, I also heard that although Mr. Ban's grandfather was over 70 years old, he would eat 5 pounds of fried meat for every breakfast, and in the end, he successfully survived to Mai Jinsuan. Watching the flying bird raise 5 fingers towards her, Mado's cheek twitched. Yes, some people are indeed in good health, and at the same age, they can still pack 2 packs of cigarettes a day, 1 pound of wine a meal, and 10 pounds of meat a day, but I don't think so. Bang. At this moment, the flying bird summoned a pile of greasy food with its psychic spell and distributed it to the old men next to it. Just as Mado thought those old men would refuse these foods, he saw those old men with white hair, one by one, calmly accepting such greasy food and eating it in big gulps. What's more, I told myself yesterday that vegetable congee was used with salted vegetables for health preservation, and I started to eat it today. You old folks won't see Yuzhibo become the 5th generation Hokage anymore. After taking a few deep breaths, Mado suddenly felt a damn desire to win or lose. He looked at the dripping chicken wings and gritted his teeth. Give me 2 buckets. When Fuyue arrived at Nanha's shrine during the meeting time, he smelled the strong aroma of fried chicken in the air and glanced at the group of family ninjas whose mouths were full of oil stains. He kindly suggested. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a time of war, so there is no need to eat this kind of food in the morning. Yuzhibo Ma-do snorted coldly. Although he felt a bit nauseous now, he still suppressed the nausea and said with a calm expression. The Uchiha clan is the strongest family in Mai, and their stomachs are naturally made of iron. Back then, Mr. Ban's grandfather could eat 20 pounds of meat per meal. We had such a small amount in the morning, which was just an appetizer. Hiccup, a melodious hiccup came from Elder Mado, and Yuzhibo Fuyue smelled the increasingly strong smell of fried chicken in the air. His eyelids twitched and he warned. Elder Mado, do not refer to traitors as adults to others. I know. After speaking, Ma Do straightened her belly and walked straight towards her seat. At this point, in the hall of Nanha Shrine, there are 4 rows of tables arranged from east to west. The number of tables in each row is different, with the most being the south row, which has dozens of tables, and the shortest being the north row, which only has 1 table. Watching the bird suddenly change its arrangement, standing at the door, it looked dumbfounded. Isn't it just 2 rows before? Whoever is older will sit in the front row. Why did it suddenly turn into a 4th row today? However, the other Uchiha people who came to attend the meeting seemed to have long known about the changes in this place. They quickly found their seats and sat down, leaving only the empty seat on the edge for the flying bird. After Fanio sat in that position with a bewildered expression on his face, he looked at Yuzhibo Fuyue, who was very close to him, and then reached out to tug at the tribal elder next to him, asking in a low voice. "How did I come here?" "Oh." The tribal elder reached out and wiped the oil stains on his mouth, casually saying. "Last time you ran away, you didn't see the old man punching in all directions. After the end of the last civil war, the elder divided the tables for us like this, which can be considered as putting the factions on the table. The one with the most people in the outermost row is the brave and fierce faction, while the one in the middle row is the second most, the strong and winning faction. I don't have many people in this row, but I am a calm-hearted faction as for you." After glancing at the flying bird, he dipped his hand into the water in the teacup and wrote a few words on the table. "Divorce advocates. The bird's face turned a bit pitch black in an instant. He looked at the big elder sitting at the table, lost in thought, and gritted his teeth. "Does Lao Deng have any objections to me?" "Oh, you actually know that the elder has objections to you. Since you had to learn medical ninjutsu every day back then, the elder has been unhappy with you. Yesterday, you proposed a marriage alliance plan, and the elder is even more unhappy with you. How is it going? Do you have any interest in recommending the old man as the eldest elder?" Quiet. Upon hearing the whispers coming from below, Fuyue pressed his hand down and glanced at the few people in the front row. His gaze fell on the flying bird, and his voice fell low. "Yuzhibo Fanio, just now, an order came from the 4th Hokage that you will temporarily be responsible for the 3 newly graduated students. After a while, you will enter the direct department of the 4th Hokage, the Dark Department. I hope you can take on the role of a bridge between the village and your family. Did I become a teacher?" The bird reached out and pointed at itself, blinking its eyes in disbelief as it looked at its own clan leader. Surprisingly, someone has appointed the Uchiha clan as teachers. What does Huiying think? After giving the other person a positive look, Uchibo Fuyue nodded at the 2 people and told them the news of entering the dark side. Then he looked down at the people below and continued speaking. "The 4th Hokage intends to repair conflicts with their family, and as the head of the clan, I should also actively release my goodwill. After a period of time, I will let Itachi enter ninja school to study, and after graduation, I will apprentice under the 4th Hokage." These tribal people around nodded in agreement. The combat power of Bo Feng Shui men is evident to all, and is recognized by the ninja world. It is a good thing to be able to apprentice to the 4th generation Hokage, and Itachi is also the son of the clan leader, and they cannot control it. The most important thing is to become a disciple of Huiying, which means that the clan has once again obtained the entry level voucher for Huiying's position. Thinking of this, many old men looked at the flying bird with a gloating expression on their faces. Although clans can be a place to speak freely, even if you do something outrageous, you can laugh it off, but some things are firmly imprinted in your mind and cannot be forgotten. For example, persuading the clan chief to divorce. The bird coughed lightly at this moment and looked towards the direction where the elder was, speaking calmly. "Elder, I would like to introduce you to a marriage. The bride is the grandmother of a Japanese friend of mine. For the sake of family honor, I hope you will not refuse." Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, a dense whistling sound came from the air, and countless suffering insects, emitting black light, flew like locusts and were controlled by some force to fall towards the Uchiha bird. Kou obscured half of the sky, forming a huge funnel that tightly enveloped the sky above the flying birds. Old man. The flying bird looked up at the sky, gazing at the vastness of suffering. He raised his right hand high, and his wide sleeve slid down, revealing his arms carved like jade, white and powerful. A red beam of light was born in the palm of his right hand, and in the next moment, it shone brightly. The intense heat radiated in all directions, instantly turning the tea in the gathering venue into steam. At this moment, the flying bird, like a god, raised a sun with one hand. Fire escape, blazing Sunday. This is his unique ninjutsu. When he was studying spiral pills, he felt that his power was too small. Then he thought of Rong-Dun spiral hand sword and integrated his fire attribute chakra into the spiral pill to form a ninjutsu with tremendous destructive power. The key is not to print. Golem. The Uchiha ninjas around looked at the extremely fierce and scorching fiery sun, and swallowed saliva one after another. No matter how many times you watch this ninjutsu, it is always so shocking. But what about this guy? Looking at those who were suffering in the air, they were all burned into molten iron by this scorching heat, like a rain of fire. The molten iron kept splashing onto the ground, burning out one black pit after another. All right. Seeing that there was no more bitterness in the sky, the flying bird casually dissipated the fireball in his hand. He reached out and skimmed the molten iron dripping on the table with bitterness, then took out a pen and paper from his pocket and recorded. On February 2nd, 51st year of the Kiba era, since Uchiha Hikaru became a ninja, the Uchiha clan elder constantly challenged Uchiha Hikaru. After experiencing hard cultivation and difficult battles, Uchiha Hikaru finally defeated the elder for the 27th time. Justice once again stands on the side of victory. Looking at the big elder blowing his beard and staring blankly, he shook the booklet in his hand and then reached out to pick at his nostrils, casually saying, "Elder, don't forget the rules you set. One person, one move, too many moves can easily lead to revenge, which is not conducive to unity within the clan." Ha ha, the elder looked at the bird's face and took several deep breaths before finally suppressing the urge to take action again. His emotions towards this guy were very complicated. Love-hate half. Within a family, it takes several decades or even decades to produce a genius. However, the birth of a genius can determine the historical process of the coming years, decades, and decades. The events that occur slowly and in parallel will compress into a brief moment, which will make an unchangeable decision for future generations. It determines the life and death of a person and the survival of a tribe. This kind of moment often only occurs on a certain day, hour, or even a minute. And Uchiha Bird is such a genius. However, this genius is so unprofessional that he went to study medical ninjutsu before even attending ninja school. When he went to ninja school, he would tinker with some bottles and jars to conduct scientific experiments. After graduating from ninja school, he would start researching legendary immortality. Except for medical ninjutsu, everything else is a waste of time, and he hasn't figured out a single one. And now, it is said that this guy has even given up on medical ninjutsu. Wasting so many years of time in vain. After looking at the flying birds for a while, the elder slammed the table heavily and didn't turn his head to look elsewhere. He hates geniuses, and even more so, he hates genius who wastes time. Genius's time should be spent on cultivation, rather than researching what kind of spouse to introduce to me. Husband, it's from the Hinata family. Whoever she belongs to the Hinata family. Forget it, let's have another chapter. Today, it's still 6,000, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. Life-threatening examination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Life-threatening examination. Yuzhibo Fuyue looked at the backs of these tribe members who had left, and also let out a deep sigh in his heart. As the head of the family, he naturally knows the temperament of his own people, so no matter what these people do, he will not take it to heart. A narrow-minded person cannot be the clan leader, let alone the clan leader of the Uchiha family. It's really that the people's nerves are too jumpy. Just now, they looked anxious and have started discussing whether it's good for children to eat fried chicken. Watching the flying bird and an elder walk out of here side by side, and stuffing a bucket of something into their arms, Uchiha Fuyue sighed again. He is a kind-hearted and tired chieftain. At this point, outside, the bird was holding a chicken bone in its mouth, and its gaze fell on Elder Liangi beside it, whispering. I said, Elder Liangi, when will we have a coup? A coup. Liangi Chang's body trembled as he looked at the flying bird in a somewhat panicked manner, then cautiously observed for 4 weeks before lowering his voice. Sleeping trough, have you left me behind? No, there isn't. Why doesn't the old man know the news of the coup? The position of Hokage has never fallen on us, will we not go into a coup? Are young people's thoughts so dangerous now? Watching the curious expression on the face of the flying bird, Elder Liangi shook his head vigorously. After covering the entire family bucket in his arms with a lid, he took a deep look at the flying bird and whispered in a low voice. Fanio, I am your second grandfather. Although your parents left early, your second grandfather is still alive. I hope that next time you have such dangerous thoughts in your heart, you will think more of your second grandfather. Hush. Fanio looked at Liangi with the words, refuse, written on his face and whispered. I know you are my second master. Yi, when will we have the idea of a coup? Are you special? Elder Liangi glared at Fanio. Why is this guy full of ideas about a coup? Can't he live well? Is it because during the war, all of this guy's companions died and his heart was empty and lacking in love? That's right, 18 years old. It's also the age to get married. After a moment of silence, he patted the bird's shoulder, shook his head, and walked straight away from here. Sure enough, men still have to have weaknesses. Those who don't have weaknesses have such dangerous thoughts. Watching Elder Liangi's departure, the bird stroked its chin with one hand as it walked home, recalling the plot of its past life. Through probing, he can confirm that the Uchiha clan currently has no intention of a coup. Although it has been a bit uncomfortable, it is not worth a coup. Shouldn't it be that guy Uchibo Fuyue who initiated a coup on his own? When he thought of the information he had revealed to an elder while chatting with him a while ago, Fanio squinted his eyes and looked towards Nanha Shrine. Yuzhibo Fuyue is a person who values the future of the Yuzhibo clan more than his own life. He is proud of carrying ethnic patterns and is very strict with his friends, family, and himself. He also strives to sacrifice and contribute to the prosperity of the Uchiha clan. Such people are likely to have the idea of a coup when they can't see the future of their clan, right? After all, his ability to open those eyes is somewhat abnormal in terms of mental state. Let's start by researching and starting from Tuanzang. The next day, ninja school. Irika. A little girl with purple long hair was facing Irika, but her eyes occasionally scanned the door and she asked with an expectant expression. Do you think we will be assigned to a group? Who will be the mentor? I'm not sure. Irika shook his head and then he looked at the purple-haired girl, equally hopeful. It is estimated that it should be a middle ninja or possibly a special upper ninja, or even an upper ninja. Ha! At this moment, an untimely sneer came from the side, and a girl with black hair and white pupils looked disdainfully at the door and slowly said. The ninja war is not over yet, and most of the upper ninjas are carrying missions. How could they possibly serve as our mentor? Bang! 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 As soon as they finished speaking, the three of them heard a knocking sound at the door. Before they could react, they saw the classroom members being pushed away from outside. Subsequently, a ninja with short black hair, dressed in a black tight combat suit, and adorned with green upper ninja armor appeared inside the door. He took this piece of paper in his hand and walked towards the podium. Looking at the 7 or 8 children sitting in the classroom, he looked down at the list in his hand and shouted. Irika in the sea and wilderness, with the setting sun and the blooming flowers. After seeing the 3 of them stand up nervously, the bird smiled at them and spoke up. Follow me. Looking at the back of the person who had turned around and left, as well as the Uchiha clan emblem on the other person's back, Shien and others exchanged a glance, revealing a complex expression on their faces. It is well known in the ninja world that the strength and spirit of the Uchiha clan are inversely proportional. It's really true, although their mentor is Shanran, they do not want their mentor to be Uchiha's Shanran. After the flying bird brought these 3 little ones to the rooftop, he turned to look at the 3 and introduced himself. My name is Yuzhibo Fanio, and I am a combat-type ninja with a wooden leaf. I like to eat cooked food, and I also love raw food. My recent hobby is journalism, and my dream is to live a safe life for a lifetime. It's your turn to introduce yourself, Gulu. After Irika swallowed his saliva, he took a small step forward and whispered. My name is Heialuka. I just graduated from Neon School. I like to eat ramen noodles made by Uncle Yael, but I don't like mustard. My hobby is hot spring. My dream is to become a teacher. The bird nodded and turned its gaze to the purple-haired girl. My name is Maui Shien. I have just graduated from ninja school and I hate greasy food. My hobby is admiring flowers and dreaming. Speaking of this, Shien suddenly felt her face burning a bit. She covered her cheeks with both hands and whispered. Can we not talk about dreams? Sure. Ah. Seeing her mentor speak so well, Shien's eyes suddenly widened twice. Is this Uchibo so easy to talk about? And you? My name is Hinata Hana. I just graduated from ninja school and enjoy eating bananas. I hate milk and enjoy daydreaming. My dream is freedom. Looking at the girl with white pupils and the mark on her forehead, the bird instantly understood what freedom meant. Is it a bird in a cage? A tragic guy. Thinking of this, he casually tied a seal with one hand and summoned 3 family buckets before speaking up. Generally, the guidance teacher would be very boring and give students some difficulty tests, such as pursuing peer cooperation or grabbing bells, but I am different. The way you have gained my approval is to finish these 3 portions in the whole family bucket. If you can't finish eating, you will be sent back to ninja school by me. After all, I am a combat-type ninja. As your teacher, this task was forcibly assigned to me by Lord Hokage. Is it that simple? The 3 of them looked at the family bucket in Fanio's hand and asked with disbelief on their faces. This assessment is simply impressive. Of course it's not that simple. As he spoke, the flying bird suddenly disappeared into place. When he reappeared, the 3 of them saw the Uchiha ninja holding a pile of food in his hand, milk mustard oil. At the moment they saw these 3 types of food, a bad feeling surged in their hearts. They are all foods that I dislike. Bang! The bird bit open a bucket of milk with its teeth and poured it directly into one of the family buckets. Tons. 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 Watching the scene of the whole family bucket gradually being submerged by milk, Hinata Flower standing next to her murmured to herself with a hint of tears in her eyes. Enough. Enough is really enough, too much. After soaking the whole family bucket with milk, he put on gloves and applied a thick layer of mustard on each chicken leg. Finally, he took out another brush, dipped it in oil a few times, and threw it onto the chicken legs. Hey! Looking at the dripping chicken legs, the bird couldn't help but shudder, and then he handed the 3 major thrusts to the 3 people, speaking seriously. This is the first lesson I have taught you. Ninjas, no annoying food is allowed. Oh, by the way. The bird was sitting on the railing at this moment, looking at the 3 tangled children. It seemed like something suddenly came to mind in his mind, and he continued. My level of medical ninjutsu is very high. Although I once swore not to use medical ninjutsu, if you three suffer from food poisoning, I can reluctantly treat them. After all, the oath is meant for outsiders to hear. Eat it, even if you put in the effort to go back to ninja school for another year. You still have to finish it today. The three of them looked up at the flying bird and saw the serious expression on each other's face. They then lowered their heads to look at the food in the bowl, and their bodies instinctively felt a sense of disgust. Milk soaked in honey and mustard. What is this honey mustard plus unknown oil? Will it cause stomach problems half a day later? Nausea nausea you cough cough cough. The sleeping bird was awakened by a painful moan. He looked at the three people on the rooftop in pain, then glanced at the empty bucket in front of them, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Congratulations, now you are a qualified ninja. That teacher, my stomach hurts so much. Upon hearing this, he jumped from the stage in front of Mao Yueshi and saw her half kneeling on the ground with a painful expression on her face. The bird's palm emitted a green light, pressing against her belly. After a moment, he awkwardly scratched his head and muttered. Black-hearted outsider, I said I could come with any loose oil, but you actually gave me fish oil. Looking at Mao Yuexi's gradually calming face, he took off his battle suit and tied it around the opponent's waist, then patted Xian's head with an apologetic expression on his face. Well, because you're eating fish oil, it's causing your digestive system to not absorb the oil, which is likely to cause diarrhea later. You should go to the school restroom and squat for half a day first, and I'll take you home at night. By the way, don't touch the oil stains on your buttocks randomly, it's not easy to wash. Upon hearing this, Xian looked at Yuzhibo Fanio with a strange expression. She didn't understand why the other party had to tie their battle suit around her waist. Oil stains on the buttocks. She couldn't resist her curiosity and reached back to touch it. A lot of oil. Mao Yuexian stared intently at her oily palm and remained silent for a long time. She lifted her head and looked at the bird with a look of grievance, then ran towards the toilet without looking back. You've been drinking too much milk, so why don't you go to the restroom for half a day? You have eaten too much mustard, so you don't need to go to the restroom. Remember to go to the hospital and buy a bottle of Ceylon later. You will feel very uncomfortable going to the restroom tomorrow. After treating the remaining two students, Fanio wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the gradually slanting sun, muttering to himself. Being a teacher is really tiring, and it's already starting to feel autistic. Ahem, I haven't signed yet. Today is a temporary chapter, I can't send any more, otherwise I'll have to run for 300,000 words to be listed. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Farewell, the Uchiha clan cannot withstand it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Farewell, the Uchiha clan cannot withstand it. A typical mentor usually conducts assessments on the first day and then takes the newcomers out to complete tasks the next day. But due to a bizarre operation yesterday, Fanio was on vacation the next day, and all three of his team members have now taken sick leave. Although ninjas have a strong vitality, they have never escaped the realm of humans. The flying bird picked up the fruit and first visited Irika. This guy's condition was the mildest, only his throat was inflamed and he couldn't speak. Upon hearing Irika desperately wanting to say something to himself, he placed the watermelon in his hand on the table and turned to look at the other person, expressing concern. Irika, you need to avoid using your voice too much now, rest in bed more, eat the watermelon that the teacher gave you, and your throat will improve. Irika responded with a hoarse voice, looking at the big watermelon on the table, and then at his caring mentor. To be honest, it is difficult for outsiders to understand the complex thoughts in his heart at this moment. He wants to change teachers now, but he doesn't know if it's in time. Alright, the teacher still needs to go see others. Please pay attention to rest. After finishing speaking, the flying bird suddenly turned around and went straight to the outside of the window. After recognizing the direction for a moment, he rushed towards the house of Mao Yuexian. That guy has diarrhea now. As soon as he thought that the other party's current miserable situation was entirely caused by himself, Fanio turned around and went to the fruit shop to pick the most expensive fruit. When he arrived at Shi Yan's house, looking at the newly washed sheets and clothes in the yard, he couldn't help but frown and murmur. Is diarrhea so severe? Bang! 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 Bending his finger, he knocked on the door, and after a while, he heard a weak sound coming from inside. The door at home is not closed. Upon hearing this, the flying bird twisted the doorknob and entered the room. He scanned the clean and tidy room of Shien's house and couldn't help but nod. It is indeed much cleaner than my own home. At least there is no cat hair in the house. That fat cat sheds its fur all year round and shaves it sooner or later. Standing at the door waiting for a while, when no one came out to receive him, the bird tiptoed to look inside and whispered. Hello, is there anyone at home? I am Shi Yan's mentor, Yuzhibo Fanio, old teacher. Maoyue Shiyan jumped up directly from the sofa, covering her stomach with both hands and looking at Yuzhibo Fanio standing at the door with a frightened expression. How did he come? Still holding a durian in his hand, bastard, doesn't he want to eat durian peel today? Thinking of this, Mao Yu Shiyan struggled to swallow her saliva. She instinctively took a few steps back, and tears appeared in her eyes, trembling as she spoke. Old teacher, why did you come? Ah. Fanio had already taken off his shoes and entered the living room. After putting down the durian in his hand, he looked at his pale-faced student and apologized. Sorry, yesterday the teacher had already locked up the black merchant selling fish oil. Today, I learned that you were feeling unwell, so I bought the most expensive fruit from the fruit shop to visit you. Speaking, he even patted the durian in his hand. He hasn't even tried this thing before, mainly because it looks and tastes too scary, completely unable to arouse his appetite. Looking at the prickly durian, Mao Yueshi's eyes twitched. Not everyone likes this thing, at least she doesn't like it. However, when she saw Yuzhibo's flying bird sitting on the sofa peeling durian, she tugged at the corner of her mouth and showed a forced smile, weakly speaking. Thank you, Teacher Xie, but you don't have to worry so much about buying such expensive fruits. You're welcome. The flying bird hooked its fingers in the morning, then handed the peeled durian over, showing concern. Teacher, I used to be a medical ninja, and I have a lot of research on what patients should eat. Shiyan, your body is a bit weak now. Eating this is just right. Come and taste it. Watching the other person's face covered with the words, care, Mao Yueshi lowered her head to look at her belly. Her eyes dared not make eye contact with the flying bird, and she quietly refused. No need, right? Do you know the medical ninja rules that were originally formulated by Lady Gungate? As he spoke, the flying bird stood up and faced the direction where Mao Yueshi Yen was, walking and speaking. The 3 principles of medical ninjas are. Firstly, medical ninjas must not give up treatment before their team members die, and teammates must unconditionally adopt the treatment plan proposed by medical ninjas. Now we are a small team, Ken. As she saw her mentor getting closer and closer to her, she waved her hand and refused, retreating backwards. Before she could finish her refusal, Mao Yueshi saw the other person suddenly appear in front of her like a teleportation. What a fast teleportation technique! Woo 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 woo. After stuffing the durian meat in her hand into the other person's mouth, the flying bird looked at the student who looked resistant, and its palms once again emitted a green light. One hand covered the other person's mouth, and the other hand pressed against her belly, sighing. Shiyan, do you know? When I withdrew from the medical industry, I don't know how many people strongly opposed it. Even the old lady Tsunade, who was far away in the casino, packed her luggage and ran back to Kiba upon hearing the news. The old lady also told me that she was very lucky at the time, and because of me, she missed a few million and wanted me to compensate her. Is this the scent of men? The scent of gardenia. Maoyue Shiyan felt that every time she inhaled, the elegant scent of gardenia would seep into her lungs through her nose. With each exhalation, that scent would instantly return to her lungs. How does this feeling feel? Like smoking Dad's secondhand cigarette. It makes people dizzy at this moment. She could no longer smell the special scent emanating from the durian, and her mind was now filled with the scent of gardenia flowers. Hello. Looking at the blushing sunset, the bird reached out and swayed in front of her, somewhat surprised. Not so much, right? What? After regaining her senses, Mao Yueshi blinked her eyes in confusion, not understanding what her mentor was saying. I covered your mouth just to prevent you from spitting out the durian. Recently, the teacher's wealth has shrunk so much that I can't bear to see others waste food. But, why are you licking my hand? Looking at the water stains on his hands, the bird's gaze towards Mao Yuxian instantly changed. He can understand this kind of thing after all. When he went to ninja school, his female classmates who controlled his appearance did all sorts of strange things to pursue him. But I am your mentor. Is it that the ninja school has changed its flavor, or is it that the ninja world has changed its flavor? The book that Zilai also wrote still doesn't have that flavor. Schwa. Mao Yuexian's face instantly turned even redder. She tightly gripped the corners of her clothes with both hands and quickly defended herself. I was just eating durian just now. I understand. Speaking, the bird patted Xian's shoulder and shook its head, saying, when I went to ninja school back then, the female classmates in the class often secretly replaced the lunch I brought with something they made themselves when I went out to use the restroom. At that time, I was also quite naive and ate whatever I had. But when I accidentally saw a female classmate cooking, my saliva dripped into the lunchbox. From that day until I graduated from ninja school, I only had 2 meals a day. Early meal, late meal. At noon, we rely on perseverance. Sigh. After sighing, the flying bird jumped out of the window and left Xian's house. Unexpectedly, even though I have become a teacher, I still, Lord Flying Bird, the clan leader is looking for you. Just as he was lost in thought, he saw a guy who was 1.7 meters tall, with a black high collar, short sleeves, black pants, and a round nose on his face blocking him. Uchibo water stop. After recognizing the person, the bird stopped and turned its gaze to Itachi, following by the stop water. It reached out to pick at its nostrils and said in confusion. Why do you love playing with the son of the clan chief who wets the bed while sleeping? Upon hearing this, Itachi's face turned black. He took out Kowu from his bag and gestured twice in the air, then said expressionlessly. I want to go to the forest with brother Jishue for training. Ha! The bird slapped its fist and hit Itachi's head. Pang! Suddenly, Itachi felt a heavy blow to his head, leaving his mind blank and unable to remember anything. Watching the weasel crouching on the ground with both hands covering the big bag on its head and a painful expression on its face, the flying bird's palm once again emitted a touch of green and pressed its hand onto the big bag on the other person's head, teaching it a lesson. No one has taught you that besides training, missions, and during war, can you always pull out all kinds of hardships. You have met me, and someone else has already confiscated your suffering. Is it still possible to teach now? Listening to a cold voice coming from his ear, the healing movements of the bird's hands stopped for a moment. He turned around stiffly and followed the sound to look behind him. The first thing that catches the eye is the slightly curved lower abdomen, with a brown apron tied to the other person's body. Inside the apron, there is a very loose-fitting piece of clothing. This chubby figure, with black waist-length hair and a sneer on his face. What should I do if I encounter the other person's mother while hitting a child? 1. Apologize as a gesture of apology. 2. Refuse to apologize. 3. Even beat the hell out of it. After weighing the pros and cons in Fanio's heart, he looked at Yuzhibo Meichin with his hands behind his back and a serious expression on his face. Lord Meichin, as the young leader of the Uchiha clan, Itachi has been exposed to various people since childhood. The young tribal leader cultivated through this method will have a great deal of tolerance in his heart. When he sits in the position of Hokage in the future and looks at the Uchiha clan, he will discover a different world. Itachi, that's great. You have the talent of Hokage. Speaking, he took advantage of Yuzhibo Meichin's confusion and quickly sent Jishui and Itachi away, then his gaze fell on Yuzhibo Meichin's belly. Looking at its slightly curved belly, the flying bird instantly thought of Sasuke, who had not yet fully conceived. It has to be said that these two brothers are both geniuses among the geniuses. Apart from suffering a bit from fate and being a bit of a Croatian, the rest can also accept it. What do you think I'm doing? Yuzhibo Meichin, who was staring at her with some hair, quickly covered her stomach with a basket and frowned as she looked at the flying bird. This strange guy, since his first pregnancy, every time he sees his bulging belly, he always sighs a few times and his eyes are full of anxiety. It's like I'm pregnant with a monster. Master Meichin, I have to say that your genes are indeed excellent, and the sons you give birth to are all geniuses among geniuses. As he sighed, the flying bird walked towards the clan. As he passed by Uchiha Meichin, he whispered in a low voice that only the two of them could hear. Master Meichin, after we give birth to this, don't give birth. According to your birth method of having one child every 3 years, the Uchiha clan cannot withstand several lives. If the clan leader finds it uncomfortable to use contraceptive measures, I can get you a ligation. I have a strict mouth and a very good tying technique. Let's think more about Yuzhibo's future. 2 sons are really enough. Yuzhibo Meichin's pupils instantly widened, and she looked at the back of the flying bird with a shocked expression on her face. How did he know he had a son in his belly? Just now, the doctor clearly said that the embryo has just formed and we still need to wait. Why did he know? No, it's not right, she thought of when she got married, got pregnant for the first time, and got pregnant for the second time. She could always find that the eyes of Uchiha Fanio looking at her were filled with a hint of anxiety. What is he really in a hurry about? As a genius in the other party's family, Yuzhibo Meichin naturally had paid attention to it for a long time, and some details that she didn't care about in the past were now connected by her, always feeling that the other party was hiding something from her. As a member of her family, although she lost some intelligence during pregnancy, she still has a general judgment. Combining with the other party's sudden suggestion to divorce Fuyue, Yuzhibo Meichin squinted her eyes and looked at her belly, secretly thinking to herself. Does he also have a pair of eyes that predict the future? P.S. Today is still a chapter. There's no way. We haven't signed yet, presented in 3.5k characters. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. I will not kill ninjas from the same village. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. I will not kill ninjas from the same village. The blue sky is like a huge canvas, adorned with a few clouds, making people feel very beautiful looking at it. In a courtyard in the land of the Uchiha tribe, my village, fire country. Sigh. The bird let out a heavy sigh, and he knew that Yuzhibo Fuyue wouldn't come looking for him if he had nothing to do. Indeed, I was reported by someone for testing my students. And I didn't happen to come at the right time, and surprisingly, I met the elder here. This old man looked as if he had seen some peerless beauty coming over, his eyes lit up with green light, and then he even stole the spotlight from the clan chief, constantly scolding himself with his big mouth open. Although your medical level is high, this is not a reason for you to test students with such extreme methods. The game of grabbing bells can not only exercise a class's collaborative ability, but also cultivate bonds between peers. The most important thing is that the only danger of this game is to guide the teacher. What can you exercise with your testing method? What can be cultivated? Antitoxin. Or cultivate the bond of them squatting in the toilet together. Do you know why we, the Yuzhibo clan, cannot produce a mentor for several years? It's because of a teacher like you who doesn't play cards according to common sense, who has already fallen to the bottom of the family's lower limit, dug a big hole in the bottom and kicked it a few times, directly kicking the lower limit into the pit. Seeing that the elder didn't mean to stop talking at all, the bird wiped the spittle on its face with its hand and then looked up at the old man in front of it, patiently explaining. Elder, actually my intention in doing that is very obvious, it's to test those 3 students' abilities. Before Fanio could finish speaking, the elder patted the table and interrupted him while continuing to spray. Does it test their time to escape? Haha, after a sneer, the bird closed its eyes very abruptly and chose not to listen to the old man's nonsense. This old man has a bad heart and no children. If he were to get sick, he would dare to lie here now. He will be in the hospital tomorrow and at his own house the day after tomorrow. The sun is gradually setting in the west, and the tea has been added to 5 pots. Smelling the aroma of rice in the air, the elder looked up and finished his last cup of tea. He looked at the worried bird and felt a great sense of relief in his heart. It's been years since I've had such a great time. The last time it was so enjoyable was when I had just become a ninja and received praise from Lord Ban. I have made a promise to the parents of those 3 students on your behalf, hoping that you will teach seriously in the future, follow the instructions step by step, and not have any ulterior motives. The elder scolded while standing up, preparing to leave here and return to his own home for dinner. But as soon as he stood up, a stream of heat rushed into his mind from his thighs. Buzz! As his head exploded, the elder felt that his legs were not so obedient. Done. The cross-legged scolding lasted too long, and my legs were numb. Watching the elder let go of his crutches, the person fell straight towards him, and the bird's pupils suddenly shrank. What's so special? I've been listening to you chattering all afternoon. Before you leave, you still want to blackmail me, right? But now there are not many people around, and if this old man falls in front of him, he can't explain it clearly. Thinking of this, the bird lifted its foot and kicked directly at the face of the elder. Looking at the growing foot in his line of sight, the elder was about to shout out, and then he felt a heavy blow to his forehead, flying towards the back with a tremendous force. Pang! The elder who flew backwards smashed through the guest room door of Fuyue's house and flew into the room. Da-da-da! Fuyue, who had just come out of the kitchen, suddenly appeared in the front yard upon hearing the noise. Looking at the humanoid hole on the door of his guest room, Fuyue turned his gaze to the bird and asked. What happened? Who? The flying bird took a deep breath, facing the humanoid hole and making a reconciliation mark in the air. His voice fell low. Elder, I have accepted. After speaking, he turned his head to look at his own clan leader and continued. Your Highness, the elder just wanted to try my skills, but we didn't control our strength properly for a while. I have something else to do, goodbye. Don't stay for a meal. No, thank you very much for the clan leader's kindness. Schwa. At the moment when the back of the flying bird disappeared, Uchiha Meichin, wearing an apron, also appeared by Fuyue's side. She held a frying pan in one hand and a shovel in the other. After glancing at the large hole in her door, a worried expression appeared on her face and said. Elder, are you okay? I'm very good. Very good. I'm very happy today. After speaking, the elder walked out of the room with a smile on his face, leaning on a cane. Looking at the big elder covered in dust and with a big footprint on his face, Yuzhibo Meichin hesitated for a moment before asking again. Are you really okay? It's okay. The elder dusted off the dust on his body with his hand, glanced at Meichin's pregnant belly, and then turned his head to look in the direction where the flying bird disappeared, with a thoughtful expression on his face. Pop. After thinking for a moment, he lightly poked the slate with his cane and slowly said. After suffering from dizziness, that kid now has the highest combat power in the medical ninja sequence and the best medical ninja in the combat ninja sequence. The perfect bodyguard candidate. Recently, the 4th generation Hokage wave Fengshui Gate has been selecting suitable candidates to gather together Hokage guardians. I feel that he is just right. The Uchiha clan has been suppressed by the stick for so long, it's time to give them a sweet date. PS, I made a mistake here. I just wrote a bug. Except for the senior management, no one knew that Kyushina was a 9-tailed Renjuli. I just flipped through the manga and found out that Kyushina is related to Renjuli. Only 3 generations of couples, a few elders, and Heiju Dai too knew about it, but Sanren didn't even know about it. Fanio naturally didn't know that Yuzhibo Fuyue's family was discussing him again. He had already left his tribe and arrived at the valley of Yen outside of my village. That's right, it's the place where the final battle takes place between Uchiha and Chitose. Boom. 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 Listening to the loud sound coming from the waterfall in the distance, the flying bird caressed its chin with one hand and looked at the rushing water flow, thinking inwardly. It's really a great place to practice stepping on water. Even if someone falls off the waterfall without standing firm, there's no need to worry about breaking a bone or something. Teacher, I am a doctor between the waterfall rapid method and the stream steady method. The flying bird ultimately chose the waterfall as the location for the students to improve their strength. Squeeze out the remaining time and you can definitely cultivate something else. Now, it's not the time of Naruto, there's plenty of time to go play water stomping in the stream. Hello, whose little devil are you from? And the adults. For this question, Fanio has been wanting to ask for a long time. When he first arrived at the waterfall, he saw that there were already 3 little puddings standing here. As a result, he stood here for a long time and didn't see them coming. Are you so big-hearted? Let the 3 children come to the waterfall by themselves. Cough. One of the children put his fist to his mouth, coughed lightly, and learned from the arrogant demeanor of his elders, with a milky airway. We are the Uchiha clan, come here to watch the band. Bang! The bird kicked the talking child off the cliff with just one kick and flew into the pool below. The 2 children next to them saw that their partner had just revealed that their door had been kicked down, and their expressions instantly became frightened. Their eyes welled up with 2 fountains and they cried loudly. Woo-woo, Mom has a bad person. I want to go home. Dang! A kuwu suddenly pierced the spot where the child who had just been kicked off the cliff was standing. The 2 crying children saw kuwu emitting black light through the gap between their fingers, and their tears turned back. Does this guy want to eat children? Before they could find a way to escape, they immediately felt as if their buttocks had been slapped and their feet could no longer reach the ground. Glancing at the child flying towards the bottom of the cliff, the bird turned around and looked at the forest behind it, frowning. Come out. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 masked ninjas appeared in front of him in an instant. Fox mask, tiger mask, black tight-fitting suit. White camisole. After seeing the other person dressed, the flying bird instantly understood where these 2 people came from. Either the dark side or the root. But if the other party just took action, it's highly likely to be the root. Hey! Hey! The bird stroked its forehead with one hand, and after calculating the time in its heart, it said in confusion. Shouldn't you just say that Lord Tuanzang wants to see me? Why did you just take action? After the 2 rooted ninjas glanced at each other, they drew their short swords from their waist and charged towards the flying birds in front of them. Dang! A black painless sword stands under the short knife. The bird gradually put away the smile on its face and said word by word. 20 seconds. After speaking, Kuwu suddenly lifted it up, separated the opponent's short sword, and in an instant swung it to the left. Dang! Blocking the other short knife again, the bird lifted its right foot and kicked it directly into the person's chest. Immediately after, his figure flashed and he distanced himself from the 2. Fire escape. The flying bird took a strong breath, raised its chest high, bulged its mouth, and its eyes instantly turned crimson. The exhaled gas also gave the surrounding air a faint burning sensation. Extinguish the flames. Flames burst out from their mouths, igniting the surrounding air. A large, seawater-like flame instantly appeared in front of the 2 root ninjas. The 2 rooted ninjas suddenly shrank their pupils as they gazed at the sea of fire in front of them. After swallowing a mouthful of saliva, their hands began to imprint at varying speeds. Water escape. Water formation pillar. At the moment the flames arrived, water molecules in the air began to surge wildly, quickly forming two huge water columns, enveloping the two root ninjas inside. Sting. As the flames collided with the water column, a large amount of water vapor rose up, completely enveloping this high platform. The two root ninjas felt the scorching sensation of steam coming from around them. They took off their almost melted masks and looked around cautiously. The large amount of water vapor blurred the surrounding environment, and it was unclear where the next attack from the Uchiha would come from. Pooh! The bird spat at the ground and looked at the large amount of water vapor in front of him. He picked up the stone on the ground and plunged into it. In less than a second, two crisp sounds could be heard inside the water vapor. Bang! Bang! Good head. Seeing that the stones in their hands were all cracked, and these two root ninjas were swaying and not falling down, the flying bird couldn't help but exclaim in its heart. Then, it gathered chakra in its hand and aimed it at their arms, directly scratching the muscles in their legs. Chakra surgical knife. As a doctor, he knows very well where to cut, which can quickly incapacitate enemies without harming their lives. This thing takes effect very quickly. Watching the two people lying paralyzed on the ground, the bird unloaded their jaws and turned around to jump into the pool below, starting to salvage the three children. It only took more than 10 seconds, those three children should not have drowned. When the bird found the three children, it saw them rolling their eyes vigorously, and the water arrows that occasionally sprayed out of their mouths proved that they had really drunk a lot of water just now. After dealing with the three children for a while, he went straight to the two ninjas at the base, crouched down, and carefully looked at them. To be honest, the root ninja has experienced no less than 10 waves since graduating from ninja school. Take him to the deserted grove and use excuses to lower his vigilance anyway, in the end, it will all come to the point of taking action. But it's the first time we've seen each other since we got up. Looking down at the female ninja lying on the ground, the bird directly reached into her mouth, pulled out its tongue and glanced at her before shaking its head and saying, "It's really the mark of the root of the tongue's curse. Your current business level is really poor, just take action when you come up, forget it." Put the person's tongue back into her mouth, and the bird's fingers rubbed against her clothes before continuing. "Don't look at me with this kind of death-at-me gaze, I don't inquire about intelligence." Upon hearing this, the faces of these two root ninjas showed a surprised expression, but then they thought of something, and their eyes instantly became gray. "If you don't inquire about intelligence, you'll just kill them. Don't worry." The flying bird seemed to know what these two people were thinking in their hearts, picking its nose and casually saying, "I don't have the blood of ninjas from the same village on my hands. Although you attacked me, in my opinion, we are all from the same village, and we cannot waste the strength of our own village in vain, can we?" The weapon in hand should be aimed at outsiders this time. The two root ninjas became even more confused. "Did you meet the great sage yourself? Is there such a good person like Yuzhibo?" After lifting the two people who had collapsed on the ground, Fanio used medical skills to connect one of their arms and let them sit face to face, with an arm's distance between them. Sigh. Fanio sighed and sat beside him, revealing his Sharingan. He called the three Yuzhibo children who were pretending to sleep closer and said to the three children, "I am Uchiha Flying Bird. I'll give you a lesson today, which I won't be able to learn elsewhere than you." One of the children sniffed and couldn't help feeling a bit aggrieved. "Why are you kicking me?" Upon hearing this, the bird looked foolishly at the child and confidently said, "I just don't want to be distracted while fighting." Bang! Seeing what the child had to say, he bent his finger and tapped the other person's head, then looked at the two ninjas at the base and spoke. "In your eyes, I see a strong desire for survival, and I happen to be someone who doesn't know how to raise a butcher's knife towards fellow villagers." Upon hearing this, the female ninja looked at the flying bird with a wary expression on her face and frowned. "What do you want to do?" We won't disclose any intelligence, don't inquire about that. As he spoke, the bird poked the 3 children next to him, signaling that they wouldn't be distracted. Then, he took out a pen and paper from his arms and continued speaking. After all, I have been attacked by you, and I still feel a bit uncomfortable in my heart. You are drinking alcohol and playing with rock, scissors, and cloth. Whoever wins will slap each other. There are a total of 100 rounds. After you finish playing, I'm happy, and then we'll go back to our respective homes. However, if one of you wins, but the winner's slap is not loud enough, then I will play the loser. Is it that simple? The 2 of them looked at the flying bird incredulously, not believing that the other party would easily let themselves go. The key is to give 100 slaps without asking anything, and then it's okay. Yeah. The bird nodded and then took out a few bottles of wine from the sealed scroll. He lifted his right hand into the air and said seriously. I swear by the reputation of the Uchiha family that what I said is true. Alright, let's get started. Upon hearing this, the 2 root ninjas instantly ignited hope for life in their hearts. They did not expect the other to easily let go of the 2 of them. They are really a group with brain problems. Isn't it just a slap in the face? After the 2 exchanged a glance, the female ninja said. I'll count to 3, let's go together. Okay. 120.3 As soon as the words fell, the female ninja gave a pair of scissors, while the male ninja gave a cloth. Pop. A crisp slap sounded, and the flying bird looked at the big handprint on the male ninja's face, shook its head and sighed. It's a pity. As he spoke, he also handed over the wine in his hand and comforted him. Take a sip of wine, if you drink too much, your face won't feel numb anymore. Ah. Smelling the aroma of wine, the male ninja looked at the flying bird in surprise and instinctively said. You're so weird. Mm. The flying bird nodded briefly, and then he summoned 3 portions of mustard honey fried chicken and distributed them in a family bucket to the 3 children. As they ate the fried chicken, they watched as the 2 slapped and played. No matter who loses, the flying bird hands over a bottle of wine and comforts the other person with words. A child grabbed a chicken leg and looked at the base of the 2 slapped ninjas, his eyes filled with confusion. Are these 2 people sick? Pop pop pop. Listening to the crisp slapping sound, the child reached out and poked his companion, lowering his voice to ask. What are they doing? I don't know. My companion shook his head, and his face also showed a bewildered expression. However, to be honest, chicken legs are really delicious. Pop. A more crisp slap rang out, and the male ninja covered his cheek, looking at his companion in disbelief, with a puzzled expression in his eyes. Are you special? Why did you suddenly increase your strength? Hand sliding. The female companion smiled awkwardly. She didn't really control her strength just now. Or rather, after drinking, her sense of control over her body decreased significantly. Who? The man took a deep breath and didn't take this matter to heart. Then he turned his head to look at the bird and asked. How many more rounds are there? 78, it's still early. Okay. After speaking, he swung his arm and joined the guessing game again. As time goes by. Pop. The female ninja tilted her head to the left, caressing her numb face and looking at her companion with disbelief, her eyes also full of questioning. Why did you suddenly increase your strength, even though you had just received recognition from that Uchiha? Cough, cough. My body is a bit out of control. Ha! After twitching her lips, the female ninja suppressed her anger and reached out to grab the wine bottle from the bird's hand. She took a fierce sip and gritted her teeth, saying, Come again. Pop pop. As the number of hand slides on both sides increases, the 2 who were originally willing to control their strength become more casual, often allowing each other to roll on the ground a few times with just 1 slap. Going back, the bird lowered its head and looked at the 2 of them spitting out their teeth on the ground. It waved and called for the three little ones behind it, pointing to the two guys in the distance who were still slapping each other and asking for help. Do you understand? No. The three shook their heads, but they didn't understand. But they did see one thing, which is that these two people are getting more and more fierce in their fight. Looking at the bewildered eyes of the three little ones, the flying bird stood up and patted the floating soil on its buttocks. He pulled the three children away and explained in a low voice. They are loyal Konoha, the good ninjas of the loyal regiment, and it is almost impossible to expect to gather intelligence from them. But it hardly represents certainty sometimes, a rift in the heart can be fatal. These people won't reveal information about their superiors, but they can reveal information about their root enemies. Moreover, I still spend money to buy information about their enemies. If outsiders want to buy information about our villagers, selling it would be a crime of betraying the village. Rebel Village feels immense pressure in his heart, okay. But who are we? We are Uchiha, the Kiba clan, and the Kiba Guard. They sell us intelligence, which reduces the psychological pressure a lot. We look at the intelligence at the root, and it doesn't even count as reconnaissance. It's called inspection. Watching the three children's bewildered gaze gradually show a look of admiration, the flying bird crossed its hands on its waist and had a look of being pregnant with a cow. He cannot tell this secret to those within his clan, otherwise they will be scared to death. Collect intelligence on the roots. What is the difference between this and collecting secret intelligence? Next, I need to combine the intelligence in my hands and actively attack the hearts of those subordinates in Tuanzang. He has such a tough team. 50% of his confidence is given by his ninjas, 30% is given by the third generation Hokage, and 20% is given by his own strength. After mastering all the personnel information of the other party and entering the hearts of all the personnel in the future, I will have a clear understanding of what underpants someone is wearing today. P.S. 6,000 chapters. The main thing is that this chapter breaks the meaning. I don't know if he will come on Monday to sign the contract. If he doesn't come, it will explode. After all, my book is not an internal submission. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Good System. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Good System, the Land of Fire, the Valley of Termination. Watching the two root ninjas start fighting due to personal grudges, Fanio takes these three little ones and starts walking towards the land of the Uchiha tribe. Not every child of the Uchiha family can calmly think about some adult matters like Itachi did when he was a child. A typical child is a child, and the children of the Uchiha family are also children. At this moment, one of the children was holding the whole family bucket in his hand. He looked at the flying bird with a look of admiration and shouted loudly. Big brother. Although he couldn't understand the secrets told by the flying bird, he could feel that the chicken wings were really delicious. The key was that he could still finish another bucket and have a second one. This is even better than my grandfather. Sigh. The bird sighed, crossed its hands behind its head, looked up at the clouds in the sky, and instructed. When you go home, don't say anything about today. As for why you are wet, just say that you accidentally fell into the river while fishing. Please give a unified statement and don't tell me about kicking you. I only received an afternoon's lesson from the elder today. That old man has been picking on me lately. Yes, big brother. Big brother, can this be continued? My grandfather has bad teeth and the chicken inside is very tender. I want to eat the outer skin and leave the meat for him. What a filial son. Upon hearing the sincere voices of these three children, if it weren't for the fact that the flying bird had seen their saliva dripping from the corners of their mouths, it would have truly believed their lies. By the way. After finishing the three little ones, Fanio patted their heads and smiled. You must have come to the Valley of the End today to admire the grace of Uchiha. Tomorrow evening, you can come to Nanha Shrine or bring your buddies. I will teach you about Uchiha's will to fire and tell you how Uchiha used his will to persuade the first Hokage to conquer the world together. What? Three children tilted their heads to look at the flying bird, their eyes filled with confusion. The legend of the will of fire. Ninja Uchiha's will of fire. Isn't he rebellious? Seeing the three children looking at them in confusion, the bird didn't continue to say anything, but smiled mysteriously before enticing them. There is fried chicken, and I will buy you some more drinks when I go back. Tomorrow evening, while listening to the story, let's understand the orthodox will of the family fire developed by Uchiha. Okay, although they couldn't understand what the big brother was saying, what they could understand was that such delicious fried chicken would still be available tomorrow night, so they should be able to poke it endlessly. Tsk. After glancing at these three excited children, the bird turned around and looked towards the direction where my village was located. Since everyone is ready not to defect, it's time to take some measures to save the family. At the very least, future generations should not be fools, even if you are crazy. The will of fire. Let me make changes for you, system. The bird that had just opened the door called out directly in its heart. When he was fighting today, he felt his system tremble for a moment, but because he was still fighting those two root ninjas at the time, he didn't pay attention for a moment. Looking at the system interface that appeared in front of me, as well as the most obvious words, task completed, on it, the flying bird raised its eyebrows in surprise, tilted its head to look at the white wall, and murmured. Is the task completed now? Congratulations to the host for successfully defeating Uchiha Naoki through hard cultivation in difficult battles, and accepting him as his junior brother. Will you settle the reward? The bird nodded, and now he almost understood what was going on. Yuzhibo Jishu is probably one of the three children who was kicked off the cliff by himself. Is this also considered a defeat? After twitching at the corner of his mouth, the bird sat on the chair and said seriously. Settlement. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, he noticed a warm current in his eyes that flashed away. The flying bird held its cheek with one hand, its eyes showing a thoughtful expression, murmuring to itself. When I heard that the pain caused by Yuzhibo Meichin's pregnancy was probably dozens of times more than this heat flow. The spirit of the Uchiha clan is stimulated, and the eyes will undergo corresponding changes. When the stimulation is sufficient, the eyes will evolve. According to his estimation just now, if he listed his own 3 Goyu to the kaleidoscope will I with data, it would be roughly equivalent. Before heat flux. 3000/10,000, after heat flow. 3000.5/10,000, It takes about 14,000 tasks to advance to the kaleidoscope. Even if we make 5 in a day, it will take 2,800 days, which is 7.67 years. According to the original historical line, the Uchibo clan still has a lifespan of approximately 6.5 years. Good system. After praising, the bird turned around and began packing its package. Just kidding, I don't have a kaleidoscope myself. When we wait for the night of extermination, will we rely on our heads to knock on someone else's kaleidoscope? Clack. Just as he stood up, he saw a scroll suddenly fall on the table. Picking up the scroll and looking at it, the bird fell silent again. Good system. 1,000 birds and 1,000 books. A.level ninjutsu transforms Chihiro into countless sharp Chihiro, aiming at the enemy to launch attacks. The number of Chihiro released is related to the amount of chakra, and if combined with the Sharingan, it can also attack the enemy's vital points. After talking to himself for a while, he looked up at the roof with a speechless expression on his face. Not to mention whether he has a thunder attribute chakra, let's just say that even if he has a thunder attribute chakra, he won't be fooled. What's going on? Is this the system assuming that it will definitely have 1,000 birds in the future and then teaching itself a ninjutsu in advance? Sigh. After sighing, the flying bird casually threw the scroll into the cabinet, intending to exchange it with a thunder-done ninja or sell a favor in a while. After all, he doesn't have any thunder attributes. Great, I completed the first task of the strongest counterattack system on my own. Counterattack the loneliness. Release new task. The path of growth always comes with many challenges, but there are too many challenges arranged by heaven for you. In the future, The reason why you will lose so badly in battles between you and Naruto is not only because of cheating and the favoritism of the Six Paths Immortals, but also because the friends you make have lowered your own level. Taking advantage of the current situation where Naruto is being looked down upon by the villagers, please make Naralumur your friend. His powerful mind can complement your powerful combat abilities perfectly. Becoming good friends with Naralumur now will prevent you from becoming enemies with Naruto in the future. With his excellent mind, Naralumur will be unable to distinguish between the east, west, north, and south of your trap. You can choose to give up on this task. Rewards for this task: deepen the progress of writing will eyes, open eyes, a mysterious exchange voucher, and a letter from a stranger. After reading the newly released tasks in the system, Fanio turned to look at the location of the Nara clan. Nara dear Maru. He certainly knows who it is. Even Naralumuru's father has had 2 drinks with him himself. If I remember correctly, is Nara dear pill still in his mother's stomach? Give up. Watching the reward written by the system, the bird shook its head and spoke up. Accept. End of this chapter.